Welcome to Even Tacos Fall Apart, where we're about to dive into the depths of relationships, mental well-being, and the transformative power of therapy. I'm MommaFoxFire, and in today's episode, we'll be exploring the diverse world of couples therapy and the different approaches that can help heal and strengthen relationships. Relationships are super complex. They're filled with ups and downs, and at times in need of guidance and support. That's where couples therapy comes in, and in this episode, I chat with Carissa Lataillade to explore the various types of couples therapy and talk through how each approach can address specific challenges to nurture healthier connections. We'll explore popular modalities and how they can help couples navigate conflicts, enhance communication, and cultivate intimacy. Whether you're in a long-term relationship, engaged, or even considering couples therapy for the future, this episode is for you. By gaining a deeper understanding of the different types of couples therapy, you can make informed choices that align with your unique needs and goals as a couple. So join us as we discover the intricacies of couples therapy, debunking myths and shedding light on the transformative potential that it holds. Our goal here is to provide a space for exploration, learning, and fostering healthier relationships. So let's dive into this enlightening conversation on Even Tacos Fall Apart, because even when you and or your partner's tacos fall apart, couples therapy can guide you toward the path of growth, understanding, and deeper connection. Heck yeah. Oh, there it goes. I see it. Perfect. Hello, and welcome back to another Mental Health Monday. We are here with a really exciting topic and guest tonight. This is Carissa Lataillade. We are going to be talking about different types of couples therapy, and I'm so excited to have this. I know that we have a lot of community members who have either gone through couples therapy or need to go through couples therapy. So I'm hoping that this can kind of shed a little bit of light on not only what kinds are there, but the process of it and what you should expect out of it and those kinds of things. So very excited. Carissa, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today and just taking the time this evening. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me, MommaFoxFire. I'm super excited for today.
Absolutely. Carissa is a registered associate marriage and family therapist and a registered associate professional clinical counselor. Oh, and
a mouthful, right?
It's a mouthful. With a master's degree in clinical psychology from Pepperdine University. She is passionate about empowering individuals and couples to be their best selves and to thrive. Her areas of interest include depression, anxiety, stress, grief and bereavement, life transitions, race and cultural identity development, and relational issues. Carissa has an eclectic approach utilizing various theoretical approaches, real-life experience, and authenticity to develop meaningful connection with clients. So if you guys are looking for Carissa's info, let me post it real quick into the chat so that you have that readily available. You can find her on her website. Oop, that didn't go. There we go. Website and her Instagram right there. So if you are looking for either of those, please make sure to check her out on Instagram. Make sure to check her out on the website. And we're just going to jump right into it. So can you tell us a little bit about what made you become interested in specializing in mental health to begin with?
Yeah, it was a whirlwind of a journey, actually. I always knew I was into psychology, but for those of you who may not be able to tell, I'm Black. Just at the gate, just want to let you know.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I say that in jest is because usually in communities of color, there is a strong stigma against mental health. And so when I first looked into psychology, there was the thought process of like, is this something I really want to do? I had already knew how my community felt about it. I knew how certain family members thought about it, certain things they've said about it. And so I kind of steered away from it. But I think that was one of the things where like the universe, God, whatever you believe in, like kind of came together and brought it to be. My mom was amazing. She was an amazing parent, and she became a foster parent once my sister and I were teenagers. And through that process, I learned about foster kids, adoption, social workers, therapy, all of that stuff opened wide for me as a teenager. And so like therapists coming into my house all the time for the kids that we were working with, who many of whom had experienced trauma. And so having that firsthand experience of like meeting those people and having those shared experiences of being someone that's a part of someone's love, like it's a loved one that you're with that has trauma, and then experiencing trauma myself. We were in a really bad car accident and having to go through that process and seeking therapy. But even after all that, I still was trying to find something else to do. I was like, no, it's not me. I fought tooth and nail. I tried my best. I did everything. I did a different degree in something else. I did AmeriCorps. I volunteered. And then at the end of the day, I was just like, you know what? Why don't I just go for what I always knew I wanted to do? And I did. And I have never been happier since I did that. So it was quite the whirlwind. It was quite the journey. And it was also quite the adventure, because many of the things just ring out to me. They stick out to me. As there was somebody in my high school, an academic counselor, that told me, oh, I don't think you should try for Pepperdine. I don't think that'll be a good idea for you.
Really?
Right? Yes, as a high school student. And I was an honor roll, so I had no idea why she said that. But I remember that moment. I remember when I was like, because I was just so defeated. I was like, let me find something else to do. I'll go to community college. And I was taught by a professor that was actually a professor at UCLA in the psychology program. And she's like, Carissa, you're really good at psychology. You should apply to UCLA. You should try for this. And I was like, no. You know what I'm saying? So there was too many signs where I just straight was like, nope. And here I am today. Like, you just got to believe there's something you're passionate about that you keep saying no to. Question why? What happens if you were to just try it? What happens if you were to see it? What happens if you were to explore it? You never know. It might be the greatest thing you've ever done in your life.
Yeah. Was there anybody, so aside from that one person in your school, was there anyone in your family who maybe even still is against you being in the mental health field?
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%. I remember when I got accepted into Pepperdine, I was super excited. And I told a family member, well, I won't name names, but said family member told me they were disappointed in me.
For going into mental health?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I mean, at that point, I felt like I didn't need to listen to anything else. Like, yeah. if that was the bar for you, like, good God, what if I went to jail? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? What if I stole? Like, what if I hurt somebody? Like, right. You know what I'm saying?
There are way worse things.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's
the biggest thing was that they just didn't believe in therapy. They felt like therapy doesn't work. It doesn't do anything, that the medicines hurt people, and that it's not good for you. And like just a lot of I'm telling you, the stigma is really strong in the people of color communities. So I had pretty much heard it all by the time I was actually a therapist.
Yeah. Well, you pushed through all of that, and now you are a therapist. So what is your favorite thing, now that you're here, about being in the mental health field? And what have been some of the biggest challenges for you?
Oh, I love this question. So one of my biggest things that I love is connecting with people. I really enjoy my job. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I look forward to it every day. It brings a smile to my face. I love what I do. And so connecting with people is kind of like, I don't know. It's sometimes the days can be like watching like a fire Netflix TV show. You know? And it's like, oh my God, I get to do this every day. You know what I'm saying? At the bare minimum. But then there's other times where I connect with people where it's like I do call into my clinical skills, where I'm actually sitting with the person. I'm using interventions to help them meet their goals. Right. So understanding like there's a time and a place for things. in the therapy session and having to stand on my own and creating my approach and figuring out what that even means. Right. So when I think about the biggest challenge, because I love my job so much, is like self-care, really. So like self-care in the sense of, usually I think the typical job, people take time off, like they have vacations or whatnot. I generally don't. And I know that's bad. And I'm a big advocate of that for my clients. So I have I have to start doing that so I'm not a hypocrite. But I do feel like a big sense of guilt whenever I think about taking off. So like right now, the last 2 years, like I took off like a week in observation of Christmas. But the year before those 2 years, I did not. Like I took off like Christmas Day and Christmas Eve. Wow. And then I worked like the other days. And then of course New Year's I was off. But yeah, so I've been trying to get more than that, but
you know what I'm saying?
Like I need somebody to be like, Carissa, we're gonna advocate for you.
I'll give you some plane tickets, let's go.
Right? That's what I'm talking about. That is the biggest challenge though, for sure.
We were just talking about that at work. I have so much PTO saved up because I'm not in the mental health field, but I work for a company where it's very much, the big thing right now is like quiet quitting. My company is very much hustle culture. Like they expect you to be on all the time, available by phone, available for emergencies and that kind of stuff. So we were just talking about how much PTO we all have saved up and that I could literally take 2 months off right now and still have PTO to burn. And that's not good. That's not good. That's not what you're supposed to do. That's not what PTO is for. But I mean, part of that is my background where I had to use PTO for medical emergencies. So I had to use my PTO for my maternity leave. We didn't have maternity leave back then. So I used PTO so I could get paid. My job was guaranteed, but that was it. I wasn't going to get any money, just the guarantee of a job when I come back. So, and then same when I had my hysterectomy, there was no paid anything, just the guarantee of your job. I still had to take 8 weeks off. So it's kind of part of my like holding on to all of my PTO, I think comes from that. But it's still not good. Like you should take time off. You should take time off. It's not good for you to not do that. Do as we say, not as we do.
As we do, for sure. And so like I've been, one of the things that, because I love working with motivational interviewing, which is the theory of change. And so I've been working on moving towards the process of leaving pre-contemplation to contemplation. And like setting up little steps. So like I'm telling my supervisors, I'm like, I'm going to go on a vacation. They're like, oh, where are you going? I'm like, no, I'm just saying this out loud to call it out.
Yes. Like this shit, okay?
Let me give you some suggestions. Yes, bring in the suggestion.
Yes. Bite says, listen to yourself and take time off. Look, at the end of this work stuff that I'm working on, you and me, Bite, we're going to go have a spa like couple days. We're going to take some time. You and me are going to go to the spa and we are going to get massage. We both just moved. So we both need massages and facials and like all that shit because I don't know about you, but I'm tore up from moving still.
Yes, that is a crazy situation. Moving is so stressful.
Yeah, it really is. So Bite is here and she does have a question. She says, what is your favorite poem?
What is my favorite poem? Oh, I love this. So let me think. It is the guy, Shel Silverstein. I love his books, Where the Sidewalk Ends.
Yes.
Is one of the, I think one of his more popular books of poems. I gotta say there's so many different poems that I love. But funny enough, I gotta say, you know what? Even though I love Shel Silverstein is like a pick-me-up. It's laughter, it's fun. It's I remember it fondly from my childhood. But the ones that I remember word for word would have to be let's see. Which one? Maybe Mrs. Stein by Bill Dodds.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one. Okay,
yeah.
So what is it? Mrs.
Stein.
Mrs.
by Bill
Stein.
Dot. Yeah. So it's basically a poem that. So I don't know if they still do this, but when I was a kid, I'm still creative, definitely into the arts. We were a part of this program called Language Arts Program, which basically meant that we studied poems, we memorized them, and we performed them at a competition level. And so I performed a poem. The first time I ever did it, I did it by myself because. And that one was great. It was an amazing experience. And then I did it the next year. And I wasn't by myself. I was in a group. We did a group performance of Mrs. Stein. My sister was a part of that group. And so that was one of the most iconic memories for me. Because every time people who know us from that always ask us to recite it again. But basically, it's a story about a kid that talks about when his teacher leaves and a substitute teacher comes in, and how much he misses his actual teacher after the substitute.
Yeah,
the substitute is not nice.
Yes. Yeah. So both of my kids have had teachers who had babies during the year, and then they brought in a substitute to kind of be a long-term substitute. And last year, my youngest had problems with the substitute. And was like, I wish she'd come back.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know, baby, but she's having some motherhood enjoyment time, and that's fair. Well, I just posted a link. If anybody wants to go read that poem, I just posted a link into the chat, so you're welcome to go read that one. It's on poetryfoundation.org, so go check it out for sure. What is the origin behind the name Paladin MFT? I've wanted to ask you that for a long time, and I've never had the opportunity.
Thank you. So actually, there was a thought process because before we got on, you asked me how to say my last name. And so there was the whole conversation of, can people, aside from pronouncing my name, can they spell it? Should I go with the whole Carissa Lataillade therapy spiel and make that a website? And I was just like, I'm just not sold on people being able to spell my name. And I'm also not sold on the idea of me putting in the correct information online. So like if they spell it wrong, it still redirects them to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was like, nah, let me find something that means something to me, that's symbolic. So I am a big gamer. My family played games. We're a big gamer family. So I have a lot of great memories from playing games with my family. And we still play games today. And so I was like, why don't I make it something gaming? And so the ones that I remember the most are RPGs. So I was a PC gamer. I think the longest out of all the games. No, I was a PlayStation gamer the longest. And then I think PC, I just racked a lot of hours with RPGs. I love RPGs. And the class that I usually am is like some type of guardian class. And a paladin is one of the guardian classes. And I wanted to see like what the history around paladins were. Because I felt like I wanted to know that as well, because not everybody's going to connect the gamer reference.
Yeah.
So I do have it on my website just in case you guys wanted to check that out. But basically, historically, the word paladin was used to refer to any of the 12 peers of the Charlemagne's court. So they're kind of comparable to the Knights of the Round Table. And so they were defined as a knight that was renowned for their heroism and chivalry. And basically, it's a person that actively supports or favors a cause. And so I felt like that wording, it was so in line with me supporting and favoring mental health as my cause. So I stuck with it. And I was able to collaborate with the beautiful Jessica, who many of you guys know her from Happy Little Brains. And she was able to help me create my logo for Paladin MFT. And she's also a colleague who also went to Pepperdine. So we know each other from different places.
Have y'all ever gamed together?
We have not. That is on our bucket list for sure. Us gaming together. I cannot wait.
I think you should. That would be fun. I would like to see that. Y'all should record it.
Right? You should. It'll be super fun.
One of the if the couch could speak things needs to be like a gaming night, and you'll just need a game together.
Oh, I love it. I think it would be really cool too, because like Jessica and I did the If the Couch Could Speak podcast on how using gaming in therapy. Yeah. So it's only right that we like game.
Heck yeah, absolutely. You know I agree. I'm behind you 100%.
Yes.
Well, I love that. That's kind of from just the name Paladin MFT. That is kind of what I got from it. So you have chosen a name very well. Like it truly does reflect what you're trying to get across. So that's good.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to keep it. We'll see once I get licensed. Maybe I'll go through it and be like, okay, maybe I'll just keep Paladin MFT as a pet project and still do my name legally. We don't know yet. We're going to figure it out.
You got time. You got time to figure all that stuff out. And you can always change your mind later.
You know what I'm saying? The Paladin MFT is it's the origin story. It's going to be
yes, absolutely. So I guess it's kind of like an opposite question, because my next question is about true crime and serial killers. Do you have a serial killer or true crime story that fascinates you?
True crime or serial killer? That's such a great question. I think for me, I used to watch true crime as a kid, so with my dad, because he was really into it. And I think as I got older, like I just was too terrified, so I stopped watching it.
That's fair. There's some scary shit out there.
There's some real scary shit out there. You know what I mean? And so I'm more into like the fictional characters, if anything. Yeah. So, whoever you guys think of, like Dexter, all that stuff, like the fictional ones are easier for me to digest at this point, because otherwise I'll be up at night scared. Relocking the doors.
Do you ever watch like Criminal Minds or anything?
No, I haven't. Oh, my dad loves that show though.
So good. Yeah, that show and Mindhunter. Mindhunter is really good too. That's another one. It's fictional, but it's realistic, so it's some of the stories are like you can look up what they were referencing, kind of thing. So maybe that's a little too real. That's possible. That's
maybe a little too real. You know what I'm saying? Because there is the space of at some point in time when you're in this profession, for you to be like, oh, I'm never going to work with blah, 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 blah. At some point in time, it will walk through your door.
Yes. Yeah, that is true. That's true.
You know what I'm saying? Like I was trying very hard not to watch the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard case, because I was like, I knew we were going to have a therapist on the stand, and I don't want to call that on to myself.
Right.
Yeah. But that's glue, because I'm like, I need to know what she says so I can be prepared.
Did you have any clients who were talking about the trial at all in their sessions?
No, that would have been super funny. But the therapist, for sure. We were lighting homeboy up, like Amber Heard's expert.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We're like, where did he find this guy?
Yeah, that whole thing. It's funny, just the drama that comes out of some of those things,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. Hopefully, I don't have to get on the stand in touch.
Hopefully not. If you do, though, you'll do a great job. Way better. I mean,
thank you.
Really speaking.
I will be consulting on a daily basis in preparation.
Yes.
I don't want to look stupid.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. So switching topics to our main topic tonight, which is the different types of couples therapy. I wanted to get started with an overview, high level, just why and when should a couple go to therapy in general?
Yeah. So I think this is a great question. I think one of the biggest things is to understand what it is that you're looking for when you're going to couples therapy. Because oftentimes, when people say couples therapy, there is a misconception of what it is. And quiet as it's kept, it's many things. It's many things. And also it's not many things in the same breath, right? But the main thing that I want you to get from this conversation is that why you should go to couples therapy is if you're in a relationship with a significant other, a loved one, right? And you feel like there's some changes that you want to make work. You feel like you guys love each other, you want to stay with each other, but certain things have come up that you guys just have not been able to navigate. You haven't been able to communicate well with one another. You haven't been able to see eye to eye, but there is something inside of you where you're like, I want to make this work. And both of you are on that same page. Then yes, you should go to couples therapy, right? Because couples therapy in and of itself is working on the relationship between the people who are in the relationship. It's not working on the two of you individually and then mediating the conversation and then saying, oh, she's right or he's right or he's right or however the relationship dynamic comes in the room. Like, we're not there to say who's right or who's wrong. We're there to work on the relationship and see how we can improve its functioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned kind of there are some things that therapy is and some things that therapy is not. What are some of those things? What is couples therapy and what is it not?
Yes. Okay. So this is one of, we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but this is one of the things that I wish I could change when it comes to misconceptions about couples therapy. It is not it's not the counselor's job to save or quote unquote fix your marriage. And I'm saying that not to discourage anybody from seeking couples therapy. I'm saying that because I feel like it's important for you to understand what the job is. The job is to help two people who want to stay together figure out how to function in their relationship. Okay? In harmony. We're working on the relationship. Now, if the marriage is not working out, if you guys are at odds, if you guys are talking about divorce, or maybe you're not even married, maybe you just want to break up with each other, right? It's up to you guys. It's up to you to decide what it is you want to do and what it is you want out of the relationship. Why? Because this is your life. After that hour with whatever therapist, it does not have to be me, but after that hour, out of that 1 week, you're going to go back to your life. You're going to live with that same person if you're living with them. You're going to sleep in the same bed if you guys are living together, or you're going to sleep apart and not talk to each other, right? However the dynamic is, but you guys are living the life. You guys are the ones in each other's lives. So we're not the ones that are going to be telling you, oh, you should stay together or, oh, you should break up. You have to decide that. That's your life. You're the expert of your life, right? That's not our job. Our job is to help it function if that is what you guys are looking for. And I feel like that's so important for you guys to understand. I want that to be understood is like, that's our job, is to work on the relationship between the people in the room. Right. Yeah. And it's also important to understand, like, there's different types of couples therapy, which I'm sure like we're going to get into moving forward. But one thing that couples therapy is not, it is not a space where we decide like whether or not you guys should be together or if you guys are going to work out or not. Right. That's not what couples therapy is for. It's for us to get the work done and work on the relationship.
Yeah. You're not there to judge necessarily whether you should or should not be in that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not.
I like that you said something about not saying that someone is like right or wrong, because that was one of the things. So I had a far less than ideal marriage. We did go to couples therapy, and one of the reasons we stopped going after just a few sessions is that my husband said he didn't feel like he could win in therapy. And I'm like, that's part of the problem here, is that you're just trying to win all the time. Like, that's part of the issue that we're facing. So, I mean, I knew that going in, that wasn't necessarily the goal was to win. It was just kind of that communication piece. So I think that's something that's really important, is to not go in with the expectation of, well, this therapist is going to prove to you that I'm right. Cause that's not the goal.
or this therapist is going to prove to you that you're the problem, right?
Yes, yes. Yep.
No, that's not what we're there for.
Right. Yeah.
We're there to observe. Not first and foremost, we're there to observe. We want to see what's going on. How are you guys communicating? What are the telltale signs? How close are you sitting with each other? Like, how are you, do you laugh with each other? Are you angry? Are you standoffish? Do you yell at each other? Do you get really, visceral, like violent, domestic violence, inter-apartment violence, all of that stuff? We're there to observe and then to help you move forward in regards to like the healthy coping mechanisms and healthy communication styles.
Yeah. So if there is domestic violence in a couple that you're seeing, how do you approach that? Do you pull one person to the side and offer them resources, or what do you do if you do see that there's some abuse in a relationship?
Typically, when we do couples therapy, we do what's called an intake. And so basically an intake, for anybody who knows, is basically like a paper where we go over your consent to receive services from us, but also we go over like history, relationship pattern history. And one of the questions that we ask is like, if you're coming to couples, has there ever been history of trauma? Has there ever been history of violence, domestic violence within the relationship or previous relationship? Right? Previous, so that we know like, hey, like what's what the person has experienced and how did they handle it? Did they get help for it? And current, because technically and under our best practices, we cannot proceed with couples therapy if there is active domestic violence in the relationship. And that was one of the things that I learned through training. So that is why we ask that question. And I'm not saying that so people will go out there and lie. We ask it because we want to make sure that you're safe. And this is a very vulnerable state for the two of you. And sometimes our sessions, even at the best of our abilities, they're not always happy-go-lucky. People might be angry. Things might get heated. And so we would not want to work through those things, and then you guys go home and that causes someone's safety to be compromised. So that is ultimately why that's not a thing. Now, does that mean it's forever? No, it's not forever. So if there's the domestic violence cannot be active, I believe it's for like, I would say 6 months to a year. If it's been that long ago, then we can consider that historical. In which case we would put an eye on it, but as soon as it's active again, then we would no longer be able to proceed with couples therapy.
Yeah. So can you give us an overview of the different types of couples therapy that there are? Yes.
So I was trying to figure out how the best way for everybody to kind of like understand it. And so the only way I could figure it out was to put it in 3 major categories. And I couldn't find anybody saying these 3 major categories. It's all kind of put together, but that's okay. You guys, this is the easiest way I figured it out. Okay. So the 3 major categories that I want you guys to take away and remember from this is premarital counseling. Okay. Couples counseling. And then discernment counseling. Okay. So let's go on the first one that I said. When I say premarital counseling, right? Premarital counseling is exactly what it sounds like. These people are engaged. They're getting ready to get married. They want to have couples therapy as like, to see how the relationship is healthy, things they need to look out for. Maybe they never lived with each other and they're now going to move in with each other. So they want to see like things they need to watch out for. Things they need to talk about, finances. Is it split? Are they doing their own individual finances? Are they joining the finances? Maybe they have different ideas when it comes to parenting. Is there a cultural issue, right? Is there a spirituality difference? What's the the connection with each individual's family of origin. Like, are they really close to their family? Are they distant from their family? What's the expectation there, right? So there's all these different aspects that comes into play when you talk about a marriage, right? And so premarital counseling is a space where they do a couple of assessments with you. I'm actually trained in what's called the Prepare Enrich premarital counseling assessment. And basically we give an assessment that looks at those key discussion points. I was talking about finance and spirituality, all of that stuff. And it looks at, what are the strength areas for the couple and what are the growth areas for the couple. And it identifies the type of couple and what activities that they would recommend for the couple to do to work on strengthening the relationship, right? So still, even at premarital counseling, we're still working on strengthening the relationship, right? So then there's what I just straight up call general couples therapy, right? And the reason why I left it at couples therapy is because there are different interventions. So when I say interventions, I'm thinking of like the approach to therapy, what we're using in the room with the client that's theory based. It's based in some type of theory. Okay. Those interventions or approaches or methods, there's a wide range of them. I'm sure I'm not going to cover all of them, but one of the key or iconic ones is the Gottman Institute method. Right? People usually generally know about Gottman. It was a married couple. They're both great. They talked about the several different types of, it's not several, it's 4. It's the 4 destructive behaviors when it comes to relationships, what they call the 4 horsemen. You guys might be familiar with that. It's criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And basically the focus of the Gottman method is to share relationship histories, explore areas of disagreements, identify those triggers, and discover their shared values, right? Another more mainstream methodology or intervention is CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. That one is really wide known. It's believed that our thoughts influences our emotions, which influences our behaviors. And when you use the CBT in the couples therapy room, basically the focus is on identifying what each partner is thinking about the conflicts that have brought them to the couples therapy. And so we try to go about challenging those maladaptive thoughts and, figuring out how we can create new thoughts to change the behaviors within the relationship. So we're still focusing on the relationship. And then, of course, under couples therapy, there's the Gottman method, there's CBT, there's imago therapy. I love imago therapy. That one's really cool. Emotion-focused therapy, narrative therapy. So there's a wide range of different approaches when it comes to couples therapy. But ultimately, couples therapy is when 2 people are together. They don't have to be married. They could be dating. But generally, I would say like it's a toss up. It could be people who are just together for long term, or married couples, or I don't want to exclude people. Polyamorous as well. Polyamorous is getting really well. Asterisks around polyamorous, because I would like to say that I would recommend that you find a therapist that has worked with polyamorous couples before. And I use the word couples loosely because that does not mean just 2 people, of course. It means more than 2 people, but we're talking about couples therapy, so I'm just using the term couples for the sake of the conversation.
Your relationship web, whatever that looks like for
whatever it looks like for you. Because if you guys are in a space where all 3 of you, or all, however it is, are on an equal playing field, then I would highly recommend that all participants in that equal playing field need to be in the room. So find someone that specializes in that, so that is a conversation that can be brought into the space and addressed. And then there's, like I said, those are the interventions, and I can go over each of the interventions, generally. But going to the other one, which is discernment counseling, I put it in its own realm because technically it is also an approach of couples therapy, but it is not one that is, I would say it is. Discernment counseling is just what it sounds like. Ultimately, it is to help a couple discern whether or not they want to stay together in a relationship. So typically, couples therapy's goal is to work on the relationship between the parties involved and help move it forward. Premarital counseling is the same thing, but it's more in preparation of the transition into marriage, right? To make a smooth transition or adjustment into the marriage and how that looks for the couple, right? Couples therapy is like they're already together. They may be married, they may not be married, but working on keeping the relationship functioning so that it's harmonious. Discernment is it can be about that, but the focus and the approach is different. So discernment counseling is a short-term approach. They bring in both partners. They interview both of them, and then they interview them individually. And then their approach is at the end to decide, help the clients, the couple client, decide whether or not they want to proceed or they want to go their separate ways. Discernment counseling is usually coupled with like mediation or like, a lot of divorce attorneys talk about it. So that's why it's not something that you would readily see or hear about.
Yeah.
Like, even when we go through our training as therapists, we are typically taught a wide range of theories. We all are taught couples therapy, right? But these interventions, right? These interventions, we can have specializations where we get additional training on a specific topic. Like I said, I am trained to prepare enrich premarital counseling assessment. Why? Because I like assessments. Like, I have a research background. A lot of people don't know that about me, but because of that research background, like when it comes to assessments and stuff, like I love it. Like I love the marital satisfaction inventory assessment that we did in class. Like that was my jam. I loved the prepare enrich assessment. Like I just love like answering the questions, doing the interviews, and then like looking at the data and comparing it to what I see in the room with the clients. But that's me. Not everybody does it that way. And quiet as it's kept, I don't actually do assessments with all of my couples. The reason being is because I typically want to see if we're able to address what it is right there in the room. Because when the assessment is involved, then it follows like a certain course of we did the assessment and then we have to go over each part of the assessment, and that can take up to 8 weeks. So it's quite a lengthy process. And it depends on what assessment the therapist is using with clients.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different ballgame. But I hope that was easy to digest, easy to understand. And of course, if you have questions, shoot them at me. I'll answer as best as I can.
Yeah, that was a great overview. So two things I want to ask about specifically. I mean, I'm familiar with the Gottman method. I think that one's pretty well known. You also mentioned things like CBT, and I think those are pretty well known as well. What is narrative therapy? And then you got really excited about one, and I didn't quite catch the Imago therapy.
Imago, yes.
Imago, okay. Yes. Okay, what are those two? I'm interested in those two.
Okay, cool. So narrative therapy. So the way that I explain narrative therapy is I've always felt like narrative therapy is the peanut butter to the jelly of CBT, which is why I'm eclectic. I feel like they go together because how CBT's focus is on our thoughts influences our emotions, which influences our behaviors, right? Narrative therapy is focuses on the stories that we tell ourselves influence our behaviors. So technically, we're still talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Our thoughts, our thought about this story, the narrative we create about ourselves, right? It influences our behaviors. It influences our worldviews. It influences our ability to think we're capable of certain things. right? So understanding like the heritage, the culture, the background, the whatever, like let's say you grew up in a poor family, there could be the narrative in your mind, like I grew up in a poor family, I'll never be able to not be poor. Right. And that narrative could keep you into that box of I'm going to keep living in this life versus we can challenge that problem story and be like, well, maybe it's true that your family grew up that way, but is it true that you have to follow their footsteps? Right. So understanding what is a problem story, identifying that story and figuring out what's the story that you want to create for yourself to be the author of your own life. So that's why, so that's why I love narrative therapy. Like that one is the peanut butter to the jelly of CBT. Yeah. They go together. Like CBT is just like, it's as long as you put it in a story format, it's the same thing.
Yes. Yep.
Right. And so Imago method, I love the Imago method. If you get a chance, like check it out. There's like a TED talk on it. This woman does a TED talk on it. It's really beautiful. But basically, at its core, it talks about it views that when a couple encounters problems within the relationship, they believe that it is a result of unmet childhood needs and unhealed wounds. And these unmet needs and unhealed wounds later become sensitivities, conflicts, or pain points within the adult relationship, right? So that's the idea of Imago therapy. And they go through a 3-step process of mirroring, validating concerns, and expressing empathy. So the Imago method is about what's called the space between. So just like I've been saying this whole time that couples therapy is on fixing the relationship between the two of you guys. Imago is about the space between the two of you guys, right? And understanding what does that space look like? How can we bring that space to its raw form of when you first met, how you were in that moment, and having you guys remember how you felt in that moment so that you can always come back to that space when things get heated. Right. Yeah. So it's amazing. I love Imago therapy. I can't wait to, this is a conversation for when I'm licensed. When I'm licensed, I'm going to put the money aside to get specific training for that. Gottman costs a lot of money. So I'm like, hey, I ain't got the money. You know what I'm saying?
Is the TED Talk, is it Maya Coleman? Is that the right one?
Let me see. Is it Maya Coleman? I'm gonna check too.
That's the first one that comes up as far as TED Talks go.
Imago.
I mean, there's another. Well, this one isn't a TED
She's
Talk.
An older woman.
Yes.
That does.
Yeah, I think this is probably the right one.
But let me see if I can find
Mining the Gold in Conflicted Relationships.
I'm gonna see if I can find. She's amazing. Like she kind of talks about like Imago therapy and how to use it and the space between. And she did a TED Talk, but I can't remember her name. No, it's Heidi Schleifer. The Power of Connection.
All right.
And she's talking about it's amazing. It's 20 minutes. So like if you have some time to look at it.
There it is. Well, see, that's what I'm doing. I'm getting the link so I can watch it later.
Get the link. I loved that TED Talk. It was so powerful to listen to her story and to see how she was able to expertly weave in her own individual relationship with her family. And talking about crossing the bridge of the space in between and reaching the person. Cool. Yeah, I love it. That one's I'm really excited about. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. Is there ever a time where any of these, and I mean, I know like premarital counseling has its place, couples counseling has its place, discernment counseling has its place, but I'm talking about the individual like Gottman method and CBT versus narrative therapy versus Imago method, all of those. Is there ever a time where that one of those is not recommended for couples therapy?
Um, I would say it wouldn't necessarily be not recommended, but more along the lines of maybe it's not it's still a good method. It could work, but maybe it's not the best. And the only reason I would say that that's the case is when we're talking about culture, because a lot of the interventions that have been made, unfortunately, like are not geared towards or like, specified for working with cultural, couples of culture. So understanding that, that might be an issue. But if you have a therapist that is culturally aware, and is able to work with you on said intervention, it could definitely work. They can make it work. Like CBT isn't one of the it's like one of the most renowned ones, I think, as far as like interventions, and it's not very culture based. But do I use it? Absolutely. Does it work? Absolutely. And I think that just means that I have to couple my own understanding of the couple in the room, understanding of the relationship, and how best this intervention can suit the needs of what we're working towards.
Yeah. It sounds like, is the Imago, is that one your favorite kind of couples therapy?
Imago is definitely my favorite. I don't actually list that one because I have not officially done the training.
Yeah, so I get it.
I've had workshops on it. The workshops have talked about like different, like sometimes like workshops give you like different activities. And so have there been activities that I use? Absolutely.
Yeah.
1000%. Imago has this activity of like kind of understanding the cycle and the cycle of communication within the two. And they describe it as like the turtle and the rainstorm. So the turtle is the person in the relationship that when things get really stressful, there's an argument, they hide, they avoid, they go into their shell and they don't talk, they become distant. Right. And the rainstorm is the person that when they get into argument, they yell, they scream, they try to get closer to you, like it's all over the place, like, you know what I'm saying? So understanding who you are in the relationship and how you can how the turtle and the rainstorm can effectively coexist with one another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Are there any specific exercises you would love to see couples do outside of therapy? I mean, there's, extended, you've seen the videos of like the extended eye contact and you sit there for 5 minutes and stare deeply into one another's eyes and it brings up all these emotions and stuff, or even just like basic communication exercises or truth and love writing or those kinds of things. Are there any of those that you feel like if more couples did them, they would all be in a better place to start with?
Yes. So it's really funny because one thing I noticed is like the love languages always like has this revolving door where like it gets really popular and people are all about it. And so I'm like, the love languages are really cool. But it's one of those things where people do it and they find out what their love language is and then they forget and then they don't use it. So maybe it's more of a intervention that you use with a therapist so that you use it. I don't know why that's the case, but people just forget it. I think short and sweet is super important when it comes to interventions. I was a part of this workshop that had an intervention that was geared towards building intimacy. And I do want to take the moment to define intimacy because that has been a thing that I've realized has been difficult for some people. And it's okay. We're all beginners at some point in our lives. We're all noobs for the gamers out there. So we have to figure out how to learn the rules, like what things are working, what things aren't working, right? So when I say intimacy, a lot of people, and I'm not going to name any genders, but a lot of people think that we're talking about sex. And yes, sex is an intimate thing, but no, that is not the exclusive definition of intimacy, right? So when I say intimacy, I mean this is the person that you can sit really close to. They can share your space with you, and it's not a problem. They can hug you, they can touch you. It's not a problem. You can share your deepest, darkest emotions, your feelings, your fears, and they're your rock. They support you. It's not a problem. That's intimacy. Right? So understanding when we say intimacy, we're not exclusively talking about sex. And you're right, it can be intimate. Sometimes it's not. There's people have different experiences.
Sex can be very impersonal sometimes too. So
absolutely.
It's not always intimate, and it does. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't have to be sex to be intimate either. So
right, it doesn't have to be sex to be intimate. And so the reason why I bring that up is because sometimes people in relationships feel distant from one another, and they feel like there's no intimacy. And the reason why they usually come is because they're not having sex. But typically that's like the last thing that happens. There was other stuff that led up to that.
Yes.
There was some kind of trust that was destroyed before you got to that point. That was the last resort. Okay, let's just be real. And so understanding that that's a thing, and having the conversation of like not only the love languages, because I do think it's excellent if you guys use it, but this really simple exercise of using I statements, speaker listener guidelines, right? I statements when you're speaking, short sentences, and then reflecting back, right? So one of the great exercises that I ever loved learning was this exercise called, it's like a joy exercise. This exercise you can do in like literally 5 minutes, right? Or 4 minutes if you want to keep the math simple. So one person is the speaker, right? And so as the speaker, MommaFoxFire, if you do this with me, as a speaker, your job is all you have to do is tell me what brings you joy. All you have to do is tell me that. I'm the one that's going to ask you the question because I'm the listener. I'm going to say, what brings you joy? And then you just say, blank brings me joy, right? And then I'm going to repeat what you said. And you're going to tell me if that was correct or not.
Okay.
And then I'm going to thank you for sharing that with me. Okay. Now, this exercise is typically done in the room, in the room, of course, because when we work with couples, we generally like to see you guys in the same space so we can see what's going on. But COVID, there has been times where we do it online, and I have such an infectious personality. Like people can feel how I'm feeling online. So this is going to work regardless.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to ask your permission to do this exercise really quickly, Mama Fox.
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm going to act just like we said. It's really quick. I'm just going to ask you what brings you joy. You can say whatever it is you want, whatever's on top of your head. And then I'm going to repeat it to you. And then you have to tell me if I got it correct. And then if we got it correct, I'll say thank you for sharing. If I did not get it correct, then you say, no, I don't think that's right. And then I will say, let me try again and ask you again to repeat it.
All right.
Okay. So MommaFoxFire, what brings you joy?
Stupid dad jokes bring me a lot of damn joy.
Okay. All right. So what I heard you say was stupid dad jokes bring you a lot of joy. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you for sharing what brings you joy. Right?
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
You know what I'm saying? So that was really quick. That was really simple. Usually when I do it in the room with clients, I let them do it 3 times to get them used to it, right? And then we switch roles, right? So then you ask me what brings me joy, and I say we do the same thing, right? Typically by the end of this, some intimacy has built up.
Yeah.
Between the two people. I
could see that.
Yeah.
Especially in person. And having to come up with multiple things. I mean, that would be really powerful.
Yes, it's super powerful. It also, I love what happens afterwards, which I would love you guys to check me out if you're looking for couples therapy. But basically afterwards is we do a review and we kind of ask, how was that for you? How did it feel to see what your partner said? Did you know they were going to say that? Did anything they say surprised you? Right? Did you feel like they heard you when you told them what brought you joy? Did you feel like they understood? Did you feel like they that it mattered to them what brought you joy? Right? So there's some great reflection conversations that happen in the feedback after that interaction.
I like that. It's a really simple thing that you can do. That's really neat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone would be surprised to hear. No one's surprised to hear that it's dad jokes. None.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. That's so cool.
The puns are strong. That's for sure. Bite said, this interview is bringing me joy at the moment. We'll see. Bite, that's wonderful that this is bringing you joy. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if, let's say that you and your partner are in therapy together and what your therapist is doing, whatever intervention or exercises or whatever is not working, how and when, at what point do you say to your therapist, this isn't working, can we try something else? Or is there a certain amount of time that you want to give things? Or how do you go about asking for something to change if it's not working?
That is a great question. One of the things that I really am adamant about when I talk about couples therapy is I talk about what's called the 4 pillars, but I usually do this with individuals, but it applies to couples therapy as well. And the 4 pillars are like, fit. Do you like the therapist? Do you feel comfortable talking with the therapist? Do you feel like you can share whatever you need to share? Right. And then also with fit, understanding that you can go to them when you have a question. Understanding the whole no secrets policy, what that means, and how you can talk about certain things in the room, right? And then there's the second pillar, which is effort. Like, you're here for therapy, but do you think that all the work only happens in that 1 hour once a week? No, it doesn't. Like, that's only 1 hour. So you're gonna depend all of our time together on that 1 hour and you're supposed to be good as gold? No, you have to do the work outside of therapy. So this exercise that we did, right? We built intimacy, right? So this is an exercise you can continue on at home. Right? These are other exercises, other homeworks that I will give you for you to do at home, for you to continue the work outside of session. Are you there? Are you willing to put in the effort to do the work outside of session? Right? The other part of it is, are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating right? Are you exercising? Are you staying healthy? Are you nourishing yourself, doing self-care? Like, how are you taking care of yourself? Super duper important. That's why it's a strong pillar. And then the last, but also not least, strong pillar is your support system. If you only talk to me for an hour a week, who else are you talking to? Do you have a strong support system? Do you have a mom? You have a MommaFoxFire. MommaFoxFire that you can call and be like, Mama, they dubbed me. I don't talk to my therapist until 3 days from now. Right? Do you have like, some friends? Do you have family members? Like, who do you have in your corner for the time when you can't see the therapist? Right? But also not to take over for your therapist, right? They're just like, people that you can have as a stopgap pick me up, but the heavy stuff leaves to the therapist. We're trained. That's what we do. But light stuff, that you can talk to, that you can vent to, that somebody's willing to do for you. If you have that in your corner, that is one of the signs of success. And when it comes to people meeting their therapeutic outcomes. So understanding those 4 pillars and having outright understanding, like, this is what I need. This is what, if these things are not in play, then probably that's why something isn't working. Right. But also, if something isn't working in the therapy room and you want to try a different therapy, you are more than welcome to be like, hey, I saw this online. I want to know what you think about this. Have you heard about this intervention? Blah, 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 blah. You can do that, but also understand that if your therapist has not brought it into the room for you, there could be a wide range of reasons, but one of the top reasons that I think of is they're not trained in it. Right. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything. They could definitely consult. But they wouldn't be able to give you what you're looking for if you're looking for something specific. Like, for instance, I'm not trained in EMDR. So if somebody was to say, like, yeah, I really just think EMDR would work for me, then I would probably have to give them a referral to someone who's EMDR trained. Right. But also understanding, like, the other part of it is maybe that they feel like, based on their observation of the relationship, maybe that intervention would not work for you. And if so, then maybe they can go over the reasons why they feel like that intervention might not be a good fit for you guys in the therapy room. Right. So understanding, like, you always at any point in time have the right to ask your therapist about the interventions that are being used. You can ask them about, like, hey, like, what interventions you'd like to see. If you want to do assessment, if they do those assessments, because not all therapists do assessments. They don't. Why? Because assessments cost a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? Just keeping it real. They cost a lot of money. Not everybody's doing it because the therapist typically has to pay for said assessment. Yeah. And then they have to charge you to do the assessment. So it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? So that's an added expense. So there's that part of it. And most of them, if they've been doing the assessment for quite a while, they feel like, I don't have to do the assessment. I know what the markers I'm looking for. I can just do the exercises with you and avoid the cost. You know what I mean? So you absolutely can ask your therapist about that. You absolutely can ask for a referral if you want to look for a specific method. Like, for instance, I'm not trained in the Gottman method. And even people who have taken, like, the Gottman level 1 or level 2 trainings, they cannot say they're a Gottman certified therapist. You have to have, like, all of these different levels before you can be Gottman certified. So there's a lot that goes into, quote unquote, certain certifications.
Yeah.
So understanding, like, does your therapist have said certification? Is that something they're looking into? Is that something they're willing to explore? And if not, do they know someone who's in that space that is certified? And just know, with certifications, there is an additional cost because they have to pay for the certification. They have to pay for that additional training. So there will be an increase in the cost of services with that said provider.
EMDR is great, but I wonder how that would even be applied to couples therapy. I mean, EMDR seems to like it would be a pretty individual thing. Has that ever been used for couples therapy?
I have not heard it being used for couples therapy. I would be surprised. I would be surprised, but I could be wrong. You know, like, when it comes to therapy, there are so many different therapies that I didn't even know existed. One of the ones that really shocked me was drama therapy, because I didn't know that was a thing.
Drama therapy, like acting things out. Drama therapy.
Yes. Yeah, that blew my mind. I was like, what?
To me, that seems like, all right, so you have CBT, which is thoughts. You have narrative therapy, which is the stories. Drama therapy is just like the next one, right? Is that the bread on the peanut butter and jelly, maybe?
Sure.
It's like acting it out or something.
Yeah, like, it's a whole thing. Like, I was like, wow, okay, like, but like I said, all of these things cost money. Like, art therapy, I was so down to do art therapy, but then I found out it was basically like I had to go back to school, and I was art school, I'm not gonna do that.
Wow.
So since we're talking about couples therapy, I don't want to skip over this one, but there is sex therapy, which is different.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, we didn't even talk about that, but there are providers who can help with sex therapy also. So
yes. And so, like, understanding, like, you know, like I said, we're all typically, when we go to school, we're all trained in couples therapy. We run the gambit. We know generally how to work with couples, right? We have experience working with couples. But if you're looking for something specific, like a certified sex therapist, then you would look for a person that has that under their name.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, well, it looks like your caption. Okay, on your captioner, can you just hit the little blue button that's on the bottom of it? It looks like you got stuck.
Okay, is it working now?
Let's see.
I see my name.
Okay, let me just refresh it on my side and see if maybe it's funny.
Is it working or no?
Let's see. Yep, it's working now.
Okay, cool.
I don't know how it got stuck on my end, but that's fine. It's all good.
It's all good.
So as a provider, how do you facilitate and maintain a safe and open environment during couples therapy, especially if you're exploring like sensitive issues or maybe potentially explosive issues like infidelity or trauma? How do you maintain that safe and open environment in couples therapy?
That is, oh my gosh, that question is like, you don't even know that. Like, when I tell you that I've had certain situations where my supervisors were like, wow, Carissa, like I'm surprised. Like you did a really good job. Like, you know what I mean? So there's a space of couples 9 times out of 10 are going to come to you when there's a crisis, when they're angry. Right. And for instance, this goes back to your other question, which was like, we said when couples therapy isn't right for you, which was like, I did say like domestic violence, or the act of domestic violence, we would say a no. Other things that could be is substance use. Right? There's active substance use going on with the couple. There's a active crisis, like someone's suicidal or something like that. We shouldn't be doing couples therapy. Let's see. The other ones, I think those are like basically crisis is the ones that come up. And the reason why is because when we do therapy, we do what's called, we go on a hierarchy of based on level of priority or level of care. And basically what it means is like, if this is acute care or this is acute crisis, we always deal with the crisis first. Mm-hmm. Right? So understanding if someone is having active suicidality or there's like substance use, infidelity is a big one. Like it's fresh, it's just new. Like somebody walks in saying like, I just found out he cheated on me yesterday. You need to do individual. Like you need to talk about it. You need to process it. You need to understand if this is still what you want, and then come back to me. Right? Not saying that you shouldn't see a couples therapist if there's infidelity. You absolutely should. I'm just saying you need to probably process it individually in a space where that person isn't in the same room with you, so that you can get everything off your chest.
Yeah.
Right. And understand that you're not going to be able to do that in couples therapy, because couples therapy is different. We work on the relationship. There are many times where I've been in the room with couples and someone is struggling with something and I feel like I want to give them the floor. I want to give them the space to talk about it, but I can't because they are my client, but they're not the focus of the type of therapy that I'm providing. I'm providing couples. So the focus is on the couple, the relationship of the couple. So I cannot individually go to this person, even though I see that they're dealing with something, right? I have to stick with the main thing at hand. Same thing goes with people who are dealing with issues, right? So if someone's dealing with, like said, let's see, they're dealing with, I'm losing my train of thought. That's so funny.
Talking about people dealing with different issues and that it might be not right in a couple setting.
Yeah. So like, if they're dealing with substance use, the couple is going through separation, stuff like that, then it's not a good thing for couples therapy at that time. And then the original question was like, how do you deal with keeping the space in the room with people who could be very angry or volatile or yelling or screaming, stuff like that? Is that the typical session? No. Has it happened? Yes. Is it every session? No. Right? So understanding when we go through our training, we are trained in what's called bringing back to baseline, which basically means there's a temperature meeting, quote unquote, rating of the room, of the area, of the conversation, of the people in the room. We can hopefully, if it's not the first session, because the first session you're not going to know. You just met the people. You're not going to be able to read the temperature that quickly. But once you get a gauge on your clients, you can be able to tell, okay, this is pushing the person too far. We need to ease up on this. We need to take a cleansing breath. We need to back up. We need to circle back, regroup, right? So understanding what are the conflict resolution skills that we learned that we can use actively in the room with clients to diffuse a situation, diffuse the anger. So definitely couples therapy is not for the faint of heart. You should definitely be comfortable with conflict and comfortable with anger. And those two things I unfortunately am comfortable with. I think it's just a part of growing up in the Black community. It's just one of the things, and also it's a stigma, so might as well use it. So I'm typically okay with it when people are yelling. I'm like, what else you got? That's it. Like, okay, you feel like you've let it out? There are other people in the building, so we're gonna have to bring it down. We're gonna have to bring the voices down. Yeah. And let's just give ourselves space, because I want you to deal with whatever just came up right now for you. And I also want to let you know that I feel your anger right now. I feel like you're angry. I feel you're frustrated. And normalizing, validating, so important when it comes to those moments, right? To normalize a person when they feel frustrated that they yell, like, yo, I can't imagine if I was feeling this way, I probably want to yell too. Normalizing how they feel, it goes such a long way. Empathy is so powerful.
Yeah. I think that it's, anger is one of the things that people always talk about being a bad emotion. And that drives me a little bit crazy, because it's like, well, it's there for a reason. You're angry for a reason. It's trying to tell you something. Your emotions aren't bad. They're just communicating something to you. You got to understand that. So it's good that there's just that kind of understanding of, there could be sensitive things, there could be heated moments, but nothing trying to bring it down to a baseline is really important to try to do.
Absolutely. And I think especially for those who are in the field that work with CBT, I feel like you wouldn't be doing your clients a sense of justice if you don't know how to work with quote unquote crisis or elevated, when people are feeling elevated, when people are feeling angry, when they're feeling irate or upset. You wouldn't be doing them a service if you aren't able to deal with that, because CBT, the whole focus is to challenge someone's thoughts. Now, aside from the whole idea that we think those thoughts are maladaptive, you're challenging someone's thoughts. You're challenging their feelings. Even if those thoughts or feelings are, I'm worthless, I'm a piece of shit, I'm blah, 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 whatever negative statement here, you're still challenging their thought. You don't think a person's going to be angry with you challenging that thought that they've been carrying around for God knows how long? Mm-hmm. Of course they're going to be angry. So we have to figure out ways of using our conflict resolution skills to be able to have that challenge in a way that's receptive to the person, so they're not put on the defensive.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So Bite has another question. She said, a bit silly, but I love your lipstick and would love to know what it is if you're okay sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you. It is actually Huda Beauty. I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there we go. Huda Beauty. Nice. Or Huda Beauty. I don't know how to say it. This is Liquid Matte, and this is Heartbreaker.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah. So I definitely am a big fan of sharing that information, because I have had big lips my whole life. And when you have big lips, you can't just wear any red, because if you wear an orange red, then you look like a damn clown. So you have to get a deep blue red. Yes. So it's very hard to find a color where I'm like, oh, this looks good. I don't look crazy. And And so theirs just happened to work out. So yeah, I love it. I love Matt's because I don't like, I like it to not leave a mark.
Yeah.
I can go about my day, do what I got to do. So yeah, thank you so much. That was not a silly question at all, girl. Slay.
Absolutely. I have the opposite problem. I have tiny lips. So I have to find ones that will make my lips appear at all. Like, just like my eyebrows are so light, I have to put some color on them. Like, I always have to have some color on my lips or they just disappear. But yeah, it is a pretty color. Disabled Entertainment says, love the title, amazing idea, respect the cause. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. If you have any questions for Carissa, we do have a queue open. You can type !Q and then type your question in and we'll get it asked. We're talking about couples therapy today.
Yeah,
You're the most beautiful people to do this as well. You ladies look amazing. Thank you so much. That's so kind. Appreciate that. Okay, so Bite says, how do we tell whether couples therapy is the right call if it seems like it might be individual trauma or issues causing the disconnect? Great question.
Ooh, I love this. This is a great conversation. So, this is a great conversation in the sense of it depends on like if you're already doing therapy. So, for instance, I happen to work with a couple where one of them did have trauma issues that I highly recommended that they do individual. And as their couples therapist, I was like, I kind of think that this is important for you guys. And I know therapy costs money. So usually like I know for me to speak up, that typically means the person's going to switch over. You know what I mean? But like I said, for me, I love what I do. And I care about my clients. When I take on a client, I feel like they're one of my my quote unquote, my peeps, my people. And so I really think consciously about like what's going on with them, what would better suit them, whether or not that's like individual or someone else, whether or not that's couples therapy with someone else, whether or not that's termination because they're doing great and they've killed it and we've met all their goals, or maybe they need to stay longer and I need to figure out how to go about giving recommendations for their care. So one of the things for to know if you should do couples therapy versus individual is to ask yourself the questions. And I'm going to be very specific with the question. Is said issue, is it something that influences the relationship? Right? And understanding, okay, if you were not in this relationship, would this still be an issue? Okay. And that's like a very basic 2-step question. The reason why I say it that way is because oftentimes there's a lot of things that influences our relationships, all kinds of things, our job, our kids, our finances, our family, the in-laws, all kinds of stuff. Right. So understanding that, okay, but if you weren't in that relationship, would this still be an issue? Then it's like, okay, this is an individual matter then. Right. And then, of course, the things that I said earlier when I said when couples therapy isn't something that you should pursue at this time. If there's substance abuse issues, that's individual. You need to go talk about it. Domestic violence, definitely individual. You need to go get resources, get the help that you need, have someone in your corner to help you through that situation. Extramarital affairs, infidelity, talk to someone about that feeling. That's betrayal trauma. People don't recognize how infidelity is a type of your trust was betrayed, right? That doesn't go away. You feel it. You carry it in some kind of capacity, whether it's an active capacity where you can actively see how it impacts you, or it's a subconscious thing where you just have this chip on your shoulder where like all men ain't shit, and it's like, where did that come from? You don't think that that's related to anything? Okay. So having that conversation or if you're having an active crisis, definitely individual all the way, 100%. So that was a great question. I really like that question. Really exploring. And you can also, guys, I want you to know that we as therapists, when we market, we give free consultations. So if you are looking for a therapist and you want a free consultation with someone, you can say like, hey, I have this issue and I'm wondering if this is what I want to work on. Do you feel like this could be couples or individual? Because some therapists might be able to tell you that. Yep. They might be able to tell you that and help give you a recommendation.
Is it better to also do one-on-one therapy while you're doing couples counseling, or should you always do them like either one-on-one therapy or couples counseling? Is it that separate, or should you do both at the same time?
I have been on both sides of the fence with that one, and I will tell you why. Therapy in and of itself, I love what I do. I'm an empathetic person. I'm used to this, but not everyone is. And when I say this, I mean talking about feelings, talking about emotions, being vulnerable. I'm used to being in that space with my clients. Someone might have grown up in a family, they don't talk about nothing. They're taught to hide their feelings. They're taught to not talk about their feelings, right? And so it could be, detrimental to someone if they're all of a sudden thrown into therapy when they're not used to it. So if you're someone that's not used to talking about emotions on a regular basis, maybe we should look into working on that individually. And, maybe you should not do more than one method of therapy at the same time because you're not used to it and it causes you anxiety. If you feel anxiety about going to your sessions where you're missing the session, you're canceling last minute, you're avoiding it, and then even when you're there, like you don't answer any of the questions, like you're avoidant, you don't participate, you're not talking as much, you don't want to open up, then maybe these are signs that this is something that you in some way, shape, or form or are not ready to handle, that it's a lot for you. And then yes, you should not be doing it. There is a situation where I was going to work with a family, but one of the family members was doing individual and couples therapy. And so I was like, okay, it might be a lot for you to do individual, couples, and family, even though your family is asking for this. So maybe come back when, you've at least done one of the two, because it's a lot, guys. It can be emotionally draining to do this work if you're not used to it. And so you as the client, you might feel emotionally drained if you're doing all of these multiple types. But on the other side, I felt like my most successful clients were the ones that were doing individual at the same time as couples. Why? Because they were focused. They had the space to be able to say whatever they wanted to say to their individual therapist, to let it out, to talk about what made them upset and be heard. And then when they got to me, they had the space to just focus on the relationship and its functioning. We were able to zoom in, focus on what needed to be done, and keep it moving, right? And so I've had a lot of successful couples where that was the case. They did both. And we were in and out with couples therapy. They met their couples therapy goals and they were on to bigger and better things. Because therapy is not forever, guys. Like, I'm not here to keep you. Like, I want you to thrive. I want you to go on with your life and manage. And of course, I'm not saying you can't come back to therapy. If something else comes up, you can come back for sure. Yeah. It's not a problem, right? But forever, no, you guys go on. With the exception of, serious mental health illnesses where you're in inpatient care, then yes, of course, now it's a different conversation. Maybe we're talking about a more forever kind of conversation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But generally, you guys are supposed to move on.
Yeah. We've talked about that before where you're not supposed to be in therapy for the rest of your life. A yearly check-in, great. Go to your same therapist who you had talked to before. Check in on things. Treat it like an annual. Cool. Wonderful. You need to go back for 6 weeks because something else happened? Go back. Absolutely. But it doesn't need to be an hour every week for the rest of your life. That's not necessarily. Of course, use the tools that you're given. Use the interventions that you're given and the things that you learn in therapy. Keep using those even when you're not in therapy. But no, it's not forever, and it shouldn't be forever. And couples counseling shouldn't be forever either. That's not. Yeah. it's not, what it's meant for.
But what I will say is that for couples counseling, that there is like this misconception that like they just have to go for like a couple sessions. Like, oh, we think we only have to come for like 3 to 5 sessions. What the fuck is gonna happen at 3 to 5 sessions?
Right.
First of all, the first 3, I've just figured out who the 2 of you are and your whole story.
Yeah.
And then we're just all of a sudden supposed to have some miracle by the 5th session for you to leave. Like, no. Like,
we know you've been holding out on us. Give us the cure, Carissa. Come on. What's the cure? We know you got the magic words. Just give them to us now. 5 sessions is the magic one. Give us the magic words now. Yes, absolutely. 100%.
You know what? This is the funniest thing to me because I love people and I love the connection. I love observing them. And so it's so hilarious to me when people are like, oh, I thought it was going to be this short-term thing. And then it's like the 5th session is when you're finally like, oh, yeah, I cheated on her 2 years ago. And it's like, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? Or I had a kid, 3 years ago. Or, you know what I'm saying? Or I fucked her sister. Like,
you're right. Yeah.
This shit that's left field.
The real stuff starts coming out at that point.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I gambled away our savings. You know what I'm saying? Like, some shocking shit where it's like, and you were supposed to be done in 5 sessions.
Uh-huh. Right.
How is this supposed to happen? You just told me this.
Yes.
Right now. Or the magic one. We haven't been having sex for months. Like, that one. You know, it's like, really? When I asked you the intake, you're like, no, we're fine. Mm-hmm. And then the 5th session, now it's all, we haven't had sex for months. Well, okay. Yeah. Well, it wasn't months from our first session, but okay.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, you gotta go into couples theory and wow. I'm going to start that whole sentence over because those were not words. You have to go into couples therapy understanding that it's going to take your therapist time to get to know you both and to get to know what's true and what's just you putting on a front. Because you're always going to go in. I mean, I did it whenever I started therapy, just individual therapy. It took me a few sessions to just get comfortable with my therapist enough to be honest about shit. So it's the same with couples therapy. Although, I don't know. Do you feel like it takes longer with couples to get to know the truth behind stuff?
You know what? I think that it does take longer in certain situations, but also no. And the reason why I say no is because I'm now in the space where I'm towards the end of my my hours for licensure. So yay, I'm really excited. I'm gonna be licensed soon. And so I just feel like I know myself more. And so because I know myself more, I know I'm the type of therapist that you either really, really like me and my direct approach, or you don't, and you need to get out. Yeah. And if that's okay, that's okay. And so because I'm the person that's direct, like when I do my intake, it's like, usually intakes are like more informal. They shove a paper at you, you fill it out, they read it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and of course I do an informed consent where I send you a paper and you fill it out and I read it. But also when you come in, I do an interview, like straight up and be like, so is everything going all right? How's your sex life?
Yeah.
You guys match okay? Anybody having any issues, erectile dysfunction? No? Okay. All right. I just figured I'd ask, throw it out there, Anybody dipping out on anybody? Anybody got any kids that nobody knows about? Like, anybody fucking somebody they shouldn't be fucking? And then people start to get like that type of like, wow, what the fuck did she say? So they feel like they can say whatever at that point. I'm good at doing that for people. Of just saying whatever and making them feel comfortable. So for me, people get more comfortable a lot quicker.
That's good. That's really good. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's not always the case. Some people might still hold out, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I like that you put it down to kind of the individual level, going back to the one-on-one therapy versus couples therapy at the same time, because, if you can do both, I think that's probably positive. But if it is giving you anxiety, I think it's really important to just underline that if it's causing more problems than it's solving, then that's not effective. you know.
It's not. It's not. And there are some great articles out there, many of which, like, I'll definitely share afterwards with you, Mama Foxfire, like, that talks about these specific things, like when questions to ask about, couples therapy, like when to know couples therapy is right for you and stuff like that. So, and not to say that all of them are correct, but there's some really good general information out there that you guys can access and make use of.
Yeah, if you'll send those to me afterwards, I tell you what, if y'all are in the chat and you want to find those afterwards, hit us up in the Discord. I just posted the link, and I'll post the links that you send in there. And that way they're kind of all in one place and anybody can access them whenever.
Yeah.
We have another question in the chat, and that is, how often do you have couples come in where one partner is thinking they're going to win therapy? We kind of hit on that pretty early, but
no, we did.
Yeah, but how often does that happen?
It does happen. It does happen. I would say it happens pretty often. And to that, I asked a very poignant question. Usually I ask this question once I've known the people a while and I've figured out how their communication pattern is. Like I've gotten the information to know, like, okay, this is their pattern. He's going to do this. She's going to respond this way, or she's going to do this. He's going to respond this way, or she's going to do this and she's going to respond. However the relationship dynamic is. And I will stop the conversation mid conflict and be like, I just have a question. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And it pauses people. It stops them in their tracks. And the reason why I ask that question is because it causes some kind of discord in their brain where they're like, I can't have both. Why can't I have both? Well, of course, you could have both in the general world. Everything's a possibility, but we're talking about a marriage. We're talking about a relationship. We're talking about this thing between you and this other person, right? And understanding that if everything was hunky-dory, you wouldn't be here in my room right now. Yeah. Right? So if what you are doing works for you, then why are you here? Clearly, there's some faults in that thinking. So that question, when I say you want to be right or you want to be happy, that's CBT. So that's actual CBT in couples therapy in action, right? Having the people think about it. And I go back to, like, I love this one book. This one's more of a textbook, but I love this book because this one's Messages. And I love this book. It's a textbook. It's a communication skills book. But basically, I love this one because it talks about all the ways that we communicate. It breaks down communication at a very basic level. It talks about how to read body language. It talks about conflict resolution, communicating with different people in our lives. So not only your significant other, your family members, children, public speaking, job interviews, stuff like that. But the reason why I really like it is because it does go over the space where what your communication style is, blah, 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 what your communication style is, and what happens when you're communicating with someone. And how are you actively listening? That's the biggest one, the ear right here. The ear. How are you listening? Are you hearing what I am saying to you? Can you repeat it verbatim because of memorization, or is it because you're actually listening to what I'm saying? And if you're listening to what I'm saying, is it because you're trying to prepare your argument against what I'm saying? Is it because you're trying to figure out what else is going on in your life? What else you got to do for the rest of the day? Is it because you're thinking that the person is misinterpreting how the person is what is saying to you because of whatever worldview filter you got going on, right? And so whatever that person says, it goes through your filter and you interpret it a certain way. Right? So understanding how we communicate with one another and understanding that if the mentality is my message to this person is I want to win, you don't think that they heard that? You didn't even have to say, I want to win. They heard it from your body language. They can feel it in your tone. They can feel it through your eyes. They can feel it through your voice, the vibrations, everything exuberating off of you. You're setting your intentions, right? But if you sit back and you say, if my intention before I speak is I want us to be happy, you're not saying any of this shit you're saying to win. You guys are getting too much of my stuff, man. I'm going to be out of a job.
Well, that book, I just posted a link to that book on Goodreads. Buy it wherever you want. Goodreads does not sell books. It's just a link to the book itself. So
yeah, I love that book. Too.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I think that that's something that comes up a lot is the listening to respond or rebut versus the listening to understand, because that's a big thing that I noticed in my relationship. I'm divorced, y'all. What the fuck do I know? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there are major reasons why I am, but like that was a big thing, is that there was a lot of listening to respond with, like, you stop listening. As soon as you hear something you want to respond to, you stop listening. You stop absorbing that information. Instead of saying, I want us to be happy, like you were saying, it's the, I want to win. I want to win this conversation. Not even an argument, just a conversation. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a really important thing. That active listening piece is really important. Mm-hmm. So there's that link to that book. If y'all are interested in that, you're welcome to click on that and find out.
Yeah. And quiet as this cat, this is really funny. I don't know if a lot of people know this about me, but when I first decided, because like I told you, I was trying to figure out how to not do this.
Yes.
So even when I decided to do it, I still was trying to figure out how to not do it. So I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test the waters and see if I can handle this. And so I signed up for this free website. I don't know if it's still around, but I signed up for this free website called 7 Cups. And I was an active listener on there.
It's still around. I haven't heard about it in a long time.
I was an active listener on 7 Cups, and I did it for a couple of months. And I was like, you know what? I want to do this for real. But that was how I first got started as an active listener.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, here's a link to 7 Cups also, since it's been mentioned.
Yeah.
If it's still free, I don't know. Oh yeah, free.
I don't know.
Free 24/7 chat. Be heard by volunteer listeners and chat with others who understand. And support chat rooms. Look, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pretty dang cool. I like it.
Yeah, it was cool, and it was like that was my entry. That's the way I found out. Like, okay, yeah, I want to do this for real.
I like that. I like that a
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you counsel couples on the importance of and on allowing space for self-care? And in your experience, is there ever a point where self-care in a relationship becomes selfish?
So allowing self-care for, like, for them to do things on their own?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All the time. So there is this thing called I'm going to butcher the Instagram, but I follow a lot of Instagram profiles, and one of them I believe is Healthy Relationships or something, but their thing is about creating a healthy relationship balance. And I'm a big advocate, I'm a big believer of that. And so in the healthy relationship balance, it has like the Venn diagram of you, me, and then where it crosses is us. Right. And so I talk to couples about that. If 50% is us, right, then you need the 25% for you. What are you doing for you outside of the relationship? Because oftentimes that's where that's where Gottman is right. That content and stuff that he's talking about in the 4 Horsemen, that's when someone doesn't have time for themselves. That's when someone feels like they've been sacrificing all of their time, all of their efforts, all of their dreams to make the relationship work, to carry the relationship, like quit their job to stay at home, to raise the kids and uplift their spouse, right? Type of sacrifice. And then feeling like, that what they didn't mean anything, right? Type of person where, they feel like, they did it, they provided everything, and then they get home and the house isn't clean, and they're like, I worked 3 jobs and you couldn't even clean the house. Like, I feel like I have to do everything. I have to work and come clean the house. And what do? That's the content building. Right? There's the anger building, the resentment building. So I am a big advocate for self-care for all of my clients. Have something for yourself, because we are complex human beings. We are complex human beings. We are not just one thing, right? Many of us are many things. What I mean by that is not just the culture. Like I started this saying, like, I'm Black, right? Yeah, I'm Black, but I'm also a woman. I'm also a sister. I'm also a wife. I'm also, a friend, a colleague, a daughter, right? There's so many, a graduate. Like, there's so many different aspects of my life that make me who I am. And just because I don't actively engage in all those relationships in my life doesn't mean that those things don't exist or that they're not a part of me, right? And I was all of these things before I entered the relationship that I'm currently in. So for me to just be like, oh, well, I'm in this relationship, so now all these other things don't matter. Like, no, now you've put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. Now you said my hopes, my dreams, my happiness all rely on this one person now, because this is who we are. And that's not healthy. That is not healthy at all. You still need to have your friends. Granted that they're not toxic or still doing things that you're not doing, like, getting drunk and, going to jail, stuff like that. I don't know what you guys are doing. But, like, you want people who are in the same life stage as you. You want people who are also, if you're married, you want to be around people who are also married. You want to be around people who are going to school if you're going to school. You're going to be around people who have a career if you have a career. Not to say that you can't have people who aren't doing those things. It just makes it, that's when people have the conversation of, oh, I feel like our friendship is distant. I feel like they don't support me. I feel like, they're jealous of me. That's because you guys aren't in the same space.
Can't relate,
and so
to
it's
one
causing
another.
A strain. Yeah, you can't relate to none another. It's causing a strain, right? And also the single thing, like, it's fine. Like, if you just happen to get married and your friend is still single, like, it's fine. But toxic shit happens, and, then you'll be back on my doorstep saying, you fucked my friend. And I'll be like, I had this conversation. This could have been avoided. Right? And understanding, like, it doesn't mean like you can't have those friends. You absolutely can. Like, that's not always the case. It's not always going to happen, right? You can have a great friend and you guys are friends, and then they finally get married, and then it's like, I was friends with them throughout that whole journey. That happens too. Absolutely. But understanding, like, we do need to have the things that make us happy. We do need to do that self-care, and we have to nurture our identities, because we were a whole person before this other person entered our lives. And what made us this whole person is what this other person fell in love with in the first place. That is why you can't get rid of who you were when you met this person.
Yeah.
Because once you do that, then the person that they love went away all of a sudden. And that's when people always question me when I say you got to do individual, and they're like, well, why do I have to do individual? We're having marital problems. Like, I feel like we should be working on the marriage. Yeah, but you need to repair the individual identity of yourself. We can't do that in couples therapy.
Yeah.
You need to get closer with yourself. Yeah, that's not what couples therapy is for. I don't have the space to be able to say, like, this triggers you, like, the substance abuse that happens, and when you guys do these parties, it brings you back to your childhood when, this was going on in your life, and it's a trigger for you, and you didn't even realize that. And now, like, I can't even have the conversation with you in a couples room, but in individual, we can have a whole conversation about how this happened to you and how this is coming up now, right? So that's super duper important. absolutely a big advocate of healthy relationship balance, and don't give up on yourself, guys. Like, still be the beautiful person you were when they first met you. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to give it away just to be in a relationship.
Well, and you shouldn't either. Like, that person that you were doesn't go away. Like, I can only give my own example, but whenever I met my ex, I stopped gaming. And I gamed a lot. And so for me to just give that up all of a sudden because he didn't get it, he wasn't a gamer, it wasn't part of our couple identity. There were lots of issues, lots of red flags in my relationship. And if you need to learn from anybody, like, what a red flag looks like, just ask me. So, but whenever I started gaming again, I just went back to being kind of my old self. I was happier. Mm-hmm. I was doing the things that brought me joy instead of just doing things for our relationship and not that you shouldn't do things for your relationship, but you got to do things for yourself too. It really does make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And just because you do these things for yourself doesn't mean that you don't have time for that's what it's called, a balance.
Yes.
Strike the balance for the time for yourself versus the time for, the relationship, the family, whatever you got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it does mean like a compromise. Maybe you just game 2 nights out of the week, which is what I did for a really long time. And it's one of those things that if you can't come to a compromise, that's something that you can work on in couples therapy is, okay, well, we're having a hard time compromising. That's something that you can work on together. This is your mama. This is your mama on games. Yes, absolutely. It's two different people. It really is 2 different people. It's true. I am a much happier person when I have that outlet, for sure.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Don't take that joy away from you. Like, that's what we said. What brings us joy? Like, you need somebody that knows that about you, right? Yeah. And, MommaFoxFire, kudos to you. I wouldn't be able to speak to a man that didn't play video games. Clearly.
I won't again, let me tell you. Either that or they're going to figure out how to do it with me. Like, that's the thing. They're either going to learn about it or already know about it. They have to. It's such a big part of me and what I do. So, and I mean, you also talked about the friends. Like, I have friends who are single. I have friends who are married, all of that stuff. But when I got divorced, none of them understood what I was really going through. And then I got some friends, because I joined a couple of like meetup groups and stuff. I got some friends who were also going through divorces. I met some people online who were also going through a divorce or who were divorced. And it just, being able to speak the same language to your friends about what you're going through makes a huge difference. I didn't break up with those other friends that I have that are still married or that are still single or whatever. I didn't break up with them. They're still my friends. But you do need people that can relate to you on your level. It really does make a huge, huge difference.
Yeah. And that's the whole purpose of support groups.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so when we talk about therapy and we talk about support groups, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to hear other people talk. But that's what it's for. It's so that you can relate to other people that are dealing with the same issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you feel that couples who go to therapy have benefits that go beyond their relationship with one another?
Oh, you know what? I do. I think that specifically for couples therapy, right? So specifically for couples therapy, a lot of the work that we do is, of course, on communication, which is why I recommended the book. But not only understanding the communication, figuring out what communication style you guys are currently using. What's your cycle of communication? What's your relationship pattern, right? And how we can go about breaking that cycle and reintroducing some healthy coping mechanisms, and resolution conflict, all of that stuff, conflict resolution, figuring all of that stuff out is super duper important. And oftentimes the couples that, at least from what I hear when they tell me during session, they always say something along the lines of like, oh yeah, you said that one thing in session that I told all my friends. I'll be like, Okay.
You just never know what's going to resonate.
You never know what's going to resonate. And also, like, I keep it, of course, based on this interview, I love humor. I think laughter is the best medicine. And so I'm not afraid to use it. And I love to use it with my clients. And so usually when they tell me that stuff, I'm like, you trying to keep people off my couch? I mess with them.
It's all right. People don't listen. They'll be there anyway. They're not going to hear it. It's all good.
You know what I'm saying? And then, so understanding, like, because they have those tools, they now have those healthy communication tools to work in those other relationships. They now know what it means to negotiate, to have a conflict resolution. So, like, when they're dealing with the issue at their job or with their family or with their in-laws, they can implement those same communication tools in those different instances, generally speaking. Of course, other relationships are not the same, right? Our relationship with our coworkers or at our job is not the same as our relationship with our spouse or our significant other or our mom or our dad or siblings or whatever, right? But understanding the core best practices when it comes to communicating effectively, those things can be what job hunters call transferable skills, right? So skills you can use in different domains across different fields, right? So if you're changing fields because you're doing a job career, you got to learn those transferable skills. That's what I tell people.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's important to be able to recognize that it's not just the stuff you do in couples therapy that can apply to your relationship, but it can apply other places too. So that's great.
Yeah.
I want to make sure to ask this question. Fiona sent it in ahead of time. What is your day-to-day experience like as a therapist, and what was your experience like while you were in school to become one?
Ooh, totally different experience.
Yes.
So let's start with the school. I made the horrible decision to work while I was in school.
Same. It's a bad thing. If you can keep from doing that, do. But I had to, so.
And I don't know why I did that, because I had too much shit going against me. My husband and I only had one car, and he also worked. So I was in the space of dropping him off, going to work, getting off work, picking him up, going to class, coming back.
Oh my gosh.
And literally watched my burnout flash before my eyes. And then the pandemic happened, and I was like, well, there goes that job.
Yeah.
Literally needed divine intervention to keep me from going crazy and overworking myself, because I will. But yeah, so that experience was super stressful. Because I'm a pandemic therapist. I feel like that's a terrible coin phrase, but that's the best way to explain it. The reason why I say it that way is because, Jessica and I had this conversation. We are a different breed of therapists. Like, we were trained and had to work on the fly and work through crisis through a pandemic thrown up against us. Like, at the practicum site I was at, there were 3 trainees, and I was the last trainee that stayed at that practicum site because the pandemic shut everything down. Schools were like, we're not liable. We don't want to be liable. Do not go to the facilities. They weren't willing to negotiate or work things out for other people, so they had to leave. They had to figure out other ways to get their hours. Then clients weren't coming. So then there was a space of like, you had a site, but you didn't have any hours because no clients were coming. So then you all of a sudden had to get another site and pray to God that there was clients coming at that site so that you could graduate. People had to defer. I have a colleague, one of my best friends. She had to defer her graduation. It just wasn't she couldn't do it. And that's an added expense. And then the other thing is, we don't get paid as trainees.
Yeah.
You don't get paid. So in addition to, I already signed up to not get paid. Now I have to defer my graduation and not get paid for an additional amount of time that I wasn't counting on. You know what I'm saying? And then when we graduate, we get underpaid. Because we're registered, which I want to be very clear. We're registered with the board to provide services, but we're basically, it's more like we have a driver's permit, but we don't got the license yet.
Right.
That's basically what it's equivalent to, right? So we can drive. We just don't have the license, but we can drive. We can do everything that a person with a license can do. We could also get strikes on that permit, right? So same situation. We are registered. It's called registered. And then, after the 3,000 hours, then you become fully licensed, right? So understanding that transition period, like there's a whole issue with our ability to get paid. So if that's an issue for you, like understand that's a thing that will come up if you're going on this journey. And just dealing with a lot of stress at the time. Like there were many times during school where because it was a pandemic, nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on with COVID. Nobody knew what we needed to do. Nobody knew where we were going back. Right. And then I did my practicum at the county. So I didn't even know if they were going to make me go to the office to work. And would they even let me work from home at the county? Right. So there was a lot of questions, with a lot of stress. Like I said, the job thing, I was working as an ABA therapist at the time. I did it because people were like, oh, Carissa, you don't know, maybe you do want to work with kids. And I was like, okay, we'll find out. And I worked as an ABA therapist. And, pandemic shut that down. I was like, well, there goes that job. Right. Like you ain't going to nobody's home in the pandemic. Like people were like, no, we don't want services. So that was a wrap. And then I was just like, okay, well, we just do what we can do. So it was a very stressful time. There's many times where I just straight up went to my academic counselor. Shout out to her, because I told her I wanted to drop out. And she was like, no, Carissa, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let you drop out. Your GPA is the highest I've ever seen. I'm not going to do that. I was like, bitch, shut the fuck up. I want to drop out for this shit. I'm stressed the fuck out. I don't have anybody. I lost my job. There's stuff going on at home. Like, I'm just done. I just want to cry in a corner and be done. How do I drop out?
She didn't let you.
She let me. Shout out to her.
Good job. Wherever you are today, good job.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, there was plenty of times where I was just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. And oh my God, when the hours thing came up and they were like, oh, you're going to need to do blah, 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 blah. And I was arguing with I had to fall into the stigma of being an angry Black woman and argue with the fucking school. There was a lot of stuff going on during that time. So it was very stressful. Would I ever do it again? Hell no. Was it worth it? Yeah.
That's fair. You wouldn't go through it twice, but it was worth it to go through it once.
It was worth it. It was worth it because I was prepared. I was a better therapist at the end of it. And I was prepared. And I needed the future me to tell me that to keep going. And I was not there for me. Yeah. But now, I currently work at 2 private practices. A day in the life for me. So I think it really depends on like your ability to do time management. So I made it so that I work at one private practice on certain days and the other private practice on the other days. But because I did that, it means that I work 6 days a week.
Yeah.
So that's not really cool. But my hours aren't all day. Right. Versus I could have chosen to shrink my hours to like 4 days, but I would have 4 long days. Most therapists typically work 4 days a week. Like licensed therapists typically work like 4 days a week, and they have a certain amount of hours. It's like typically like I would say like there are some go-getters that do 40 hours a week. Not everybody can do that. Why? Because like I said, it is emotionally draining to do this work. So typically people aren't seeing 40 clients a week. But there are people who do it, and the other people who don't. Typically, those are private practice. They could probably get away with 20 to 30 a week and be okay. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like I see around 20 or 30 a week.
Yeah.
Because I work at 2 private practices though, so both part time. So it kind of adds up. And then I also do work outside of therapy. So I also am a volunteer for our association, the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapy in Los Angeles. So I do some volunteer work there. And I'm looking to do some more stuff in the future. So I'm excited for it. So my daily life is I wake up, I have my coffee when I want it because I don't start early anymore. Thank God. I figured out my schedule. I'm okay with the 6 days because I don't start early. I'm not a morning person.
Me either.
So I have my drink, I get my coffee or whatever. I get, take a shower, I do whatever makes me laugh. So that could be I used to play video games, but then I was like, nah, because then I started getting jaded that I had to interrupt my video game session to go to work. So I was like, I can't do that before work. So it's more of a weekend thing now for gaming.
Yeah.
Or after work.
That's what I do. I do it after work. Yes.
Yeah. So now what I do beforehand, maybe I'll listen to a really fun podcast, or I'll listen to an audiobook. Or music. I'll get music to fire me up. Or YouTube. I'll watch YouTube. Or some shows. And then once I do that, I'll pack myself a little lunch, and then I'll drive on down to the office. I work typically from the afternoon to the evening. And so I'll be there till the evening, and then I pack up my stuff and I go home. I have dinner with my family, may play a game or two, go to sleep, and do the whole thing over again the next day.
Yeah.
The one thing I have not mastered is figuring out time management for notes. I work with clients with procrastination because I have always struggled with procrastination. But one of these days, I'm exploring what it looks like for me to do notes in between session, but it means I have to end the session on time.
Yeah. That's hard.
It's hard, I always want to let people say what they have to say, and so then I'll be like, okay, you got 2 more minutes.
Yep.
Yeah. But thank you for that question. I loved that question. So I see clients, I don't know if this matters, but I typically see most of my in-person clients on Saturdays. I'll see a few during the week, but not really that much. And then most of them are online. So I go in the office, set up everything for me to do the online session, or I set up the room for me to see the client. And of course, depending on where you work, they might have you still wear masks, like my place does, or they don't. In which case, that's fine too. You do whatever you got to do, set up the room. I usually try to do self-care. That is one thing I actually do, but I have not been doing because it's been 1,000 degrees in California.
Yeah, that's fair.
But usually what I do is I have my lunch break, and on my lunch break I will eat, and then I go for a long walk around the area. And that's a great way to de-stress, take care of myself, reset for the next couple of clients.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I'm in Texas and going for a long walk. Even still right now, you come back just coated in sweat. It's not a good look.
I had to cut out the walk. It was sad. What I do now is I'll quickly go across the street for a coffee boost, and I'll come back.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that just has to be it.
Yeah. Cool off.
I'll read,
cool
watch
soon.
YouTube.
Yep. It'll cool off soon.
Yeah.
So, do you have a mental health care provider at the moment? Why or why not?
Yes, this is a great question. So I do have a mental health care provider. For those of you just joining on, I did tell at the beginning, I was in a car accident, and when I was a teenager, and so that was my first introduction to therapy for myself. And so I am okay with therapy. I always felt like it was important. And I currently have one. She's great. Really enjoy our working relationship with each other. And it's a different feeling now because I'm also a therapist. So it's like there's a space of feeling like it's a mentor relationship.
Yeah.
But yes, I am a big advocate of like, how can we recommend something if we don't also like agree to do it? Just because I have a mental health provider does not mean that I can't work with clients. Actually, in one of our law and ethics, like one of the things is that it's unethical, I believe, for us to work with clients if we are not, 100%, if we're unwell. And that includes our mental health. And so it's important for us to understand that and take care of it so that we can be 100% for our clients, right? If you think about working with clients as like a cup of water, for instance, here's my little cup of water. And every client, I'm dropping gems like I have for this whole podcast, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And, and so my water is like, slowly but surely coming down. Right. So I got to refill the water so that the next day, the next couple of clients, they get that same access of water. Right. That they don't have a Carissa that's tired, that can't pay attention to what they're saying, that is sleepy, is, getting lost or, it needs things repeated, stuff like that. So know the signs of when you're tired, know when you need to take a break, know what burnout is and how it affects you, and be able to figure out how to replenish that water for yourself, that energy for yourself, or spoons. Jessica likes to say spoons.
Yes. Yep.
Spoons for yourself so that you could continue doing the great work that you do. It's super important. And I want all of my clients to get, the first day of the week, Carissa. I don't want them to get, this is the last client of the day. I'm tired, ready to get out, Carissa. And I made it a habit that wasn't somebody that, showed up in the therapy room. I wanted them all to get the same one. And I figured out how to do that and make that a priority for all of my clients.
That's good. I do want you to consider, though, and I'm going to consider the same thing. Will taking some of that PTO make our cup bigger?
1,000%.
We gotta make a pact here. We got some PTO. In like let's say in the next 3 months, I'm gonna take a week off of work. That's my new goal. In the next 3 months, I'm gonna take 1 week off of work. That's my goal. So
1 week. 1 week,
We'll see. We'll see if it happens.
I'm figuring it out.
So we've talked a lot about, kind of your journey to getting to be finally deciding, like you railed against it a little bit. But if you had gone on a different path, if you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing instead, do you think?
This is a great question. So there were many different things that I contemplated doing. The first of which, I was going to be a lawyer. And then that whole thing where the guy it was on the news where some lawyer got like shot. Yeah, like it was on the news. Like it was a big thing. Like the whatever client came and was shooting at the lawyer with a BB gun. And the lawyer is like hiding behind the tree and like running back and forth. And I remember that moment because that was the moment I was like, I'm not being a lawyer.
Right. I don't want to get shot at.
And then after that, I was like, okay, well, Carissa, what else can you do? And I was like, you know what? I'm good at numbers. What does it look like to do accounting? Because I loved math. I always loved math. So I went in there and the people was like, oh yeah, you can be a CPA, but you're going to have to do this, that, and the other. It's going to take several years. I was like, several years? And I was like, oh, let me figure something else out. And the joke's on me because I've been to school for several years.
Yes. Yes. Yup.
So I'm pretty sure I would have been an accountant. I feel like I would have figured if I had realized that this would have taken the same amount of time, I just would have been like, well, I already asked about the accounting. So
Accounting was one of my majors on the way to my eventual graduation major, but that was one of my. I went from business to accounting to entrepreneurship to marketing, and then dual majored in marketing and business ultimately.
Wow. So okay.
That was one of my like, maybe I'll try this next. Maybe I'll try this next. Maybe I'll try, which is stupid because I was paying for college myself. Like, that's great to do if you're on someone else's dime, but when you're paying for it yourself, figure out what you want to do first.
Figure out what you want to do. And also know yourself, because I love dancing. I took all the dance classes. I took all of them. And like, it was a thing. Like, I really loved it. And everybody thought I was going to do dancing. And I was like, no, like, I love this, but they don't make no money.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, nah, like, this is my hobby.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it's time. Okay. It's time for the magic moment of the stream, and I have this beautiful magic wand that I'm going to turn. So this is my sparkle magic wand. And if you could wave this magic wand and eliminate one common opinion, misconception, or theory surrounding mental illness, disabilities, talking about mental health, what would it be? And since you don't have this physically in your hand, I'm going to wave it for you, and then you're going to tell me. You're going to tell me what you're going to eliminate here. So we're just going to give it a little wave. There you go.
Ooh, look at the wave. Magic wand moment.
The power
magic
is
moment.
yours.
The power is mine. I sticking with the theme of couples therapy. I want to talk about, like, for people thinking that that when they come to couples therapy, that the therapist is supposed to save their marriage. Mm-hmm. You are supposed to save your marriage if that is indeed what it is that the two of you want. And I think that it's important to understand we are the author of our own lives. You have the power to decide what you want your life to be. The therapist is just there to be a guide, a travel companion, to be able to, like, on the left, that's the stage where Brad Pitt did so-and-so movie. And over here on the right, there's the concession stand. We have snacks. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what we're here for. We're not the people that's supposed to decide the destination. We're just here to help guide you along and be like, hey, you can take this road, but this road's more efficient, but we will go with you on this road.
Yeah.
Right? So I wish that when it came to couples therapy, that people understood that and were willing to take ownership of their power in that decision. I think that's really important for couples therapy.
Yeah. That's, your therapist can't make the decisions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately.
I know. You don't know how many people say, well, tell me what to do.
Tell me those magic words. I'm still waiting on the magic words.
Yep.
She's gonna tell me after. Don't worry, I'll tell everybody. She'll tell me afterwards. It's all right. Well, I'm going to open it up to any remaining community Q&A. I think we've gotten all the way through the queue. So if anybody has anything else, please just ask the question in the chat and we'll get to it. And then Carissa, I'll open it up to you and just say, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to throw out there, or any projects that you're working on that you want to share, or anything like that?
Yeah. I wish there was like a super cool, podcast or book that I was doing, but guys, I work my butt off. I don't have time. I don't have time. In the future, I will put some time into my schedule. You know what I'm saying? I'll be licensed. I won't have to work as hard. You know what I'm saying? So I can dedicate time to do those kind of projects. But I do currently work at 2 private practices. One of them, I am currently accepting clients. It's at Magpie Life Psychotherapy. I provide therapy online, and it's full pay, so we don't take insurance at that private practice. But if you have the money, you're looking for an individual therapist, you think we might be a good fit, please check me out on my website.
Yep.
My website is www.paladinmft.com. See, you don't have to figure out how to spell Carissa Lataillade.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you can do Paladin MFT. It's real simple, real short. Keep it short and sweet, right? And then if you can't remember that, like, you can definitely check my Instagram at PaladinMFT. I try to post on there as much as I can remember, but, sometimes I forget. So, definitely check my website. All my information is there. My Psychology Today is on there. Zen Care is on there. Reflect is on there. All the different databases that I'm on to show that I'm a therapist seeking new clients.
Perfect. I put the link to that website and your Instagram handle in the chat. So if anybody's looking for something to just click, you don't even have to remember that it's paladinmft.com. Just click the link and you'll get there. Yep. Absolutely. Baita, this has been very entertaining and educational. Thank you so much for being here. And I will echo that. Thank you for taking the time out of your night and joining us here today.
Oh, I'm so glad I could be here. It is
Absolutely.
super cool to have all the questions. That's so cool.
I hope that our exploration of different types of couples therapy has provided you with valuable insights and a deeper understanding of how therapy can help transform relationships. Couples therapy is a powerful tool that can help couples navigate challenges, enhance communication, and foster a deeper connection. Whether you're seeking therapy or just interested in learning more about the possibilities, I hope this episode has sparked curiosity and empowered you to explore the options available. Big thanks to Carissa for sharing her knowledge and experiences, and to you, the listeners, for joining me on this journey. I hope you feel inspired and encouraged to prioritize health and growth of your own relationships. I invite you to continue this conversation on couples therapy by sharing your thoughts and experiences. You can do that on social media. You can do that on our website, tacosfallapart.org. And if you found this episode helpful at all, please consider leaving a review or rating on your favorite podcast platform, wherever you're listening right now. It really helps reach more people who could benefit from conversations just like this one. Thank you for tuning in to Even Tacos Fall Apart. Remember, even when relationships face challenges, therapy can provide tools and guidance to foster healing, understanding, and a stronger bond. Until next time, take care of yourself and nurture the connections that matter most.